Good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome into Hoopsville. We are back on the air after the Thanksgiving holiday. Hope you enjoyed your Thanksgiving as much as we enjoyed our Thanksgiving. A little bit of rest and relaxation before things are going crazy. If you have tuned into the preseason podcast, if you have tuned into the first couple of shows, you'll notice one thing immediately different about our show tonight. We resurrected the video. It's back up and running. We've got our webcam up and running to a little bit of a refashioned studio. You may also notice that. It's still a work in progress. Our friends who made our lovely Hoopsville sign will be a little bit frustrated right now. It's still buried. Don't worry. Our plans are to move it up, as it were, in the coming weeks as well. We've gotten a bunch of jerseys over the years. They are now spread out around the Hoopsville studios. We've moved a couple. We've framed a few, shifted a few things here and there. So we hope you like it. Plenty more room to fill in, believe it or not, and we plan on filling it in. That will be the easy part. There's a lot of little things here and there that we got to find a home for, and we will find a home for them. So enjoy the Hoopsville studios as they are now. They are a work in progress. We say this all the time. If there's any Division III schools out there, programs or whatnot, who want to send us something to hang or put in our studios, send them along. We will find a home for it. And if we don't find a home for it, we will. If we have too much stuff, we will start rotating. At least that's the grand plan. So we do hope you had a good Thanksgiving. Welcome back to our normal Hoopsville shows. We have a little bit on tap. We don't have a lot. Trying in these early season shows to pare down a little bit so we can talk more about what's going on. However, we will talk about the fact that this is technically our 15th season of Hoopsville. It's the 20th season of D3Hoops.com, or the 20th anniversary, I should say. It makes it technically the 21st season of D3Hoops.com. Pat Coleman will join us. We pulled him out of football temporarily. We said, take a break. There's really nothing going on in football. It's not that exciting right now. You don't need to spend your time there. So come and talk to us. He disagreed about the first part, but agreed about the second part. He is going to join us and talk to us about the story of D3 Hoops. I don't know if you've heard the story about how this all started. I'm going to get Pat to tell us. It's a great story how it started, where it's gone, and where it's going in the future. We'll talk to Pat coming up. We'll also talk to one of the teams who it was on my radar and I didn't know what to make of. Picked to win the Liberty League. Went, okay, sure. I'll take that. But what does that really mean? Well, they've knocked off 2 top 25 teams in their opening 2 games of the season. Yes, we can argue about what the top 25 looks like on the men's side. We will talk about that briefly, or not briefly, but we'll talk about that in a moment. But they did knock off 2 top 25 teams to start the season. We will talk to the Hobart Statesman men's basketball program. Tim Sweeney will join us to talk about that. You might remember, if you know D3 Hoops for 20 years, Tim Sweeney was a player under Mike Neer at Rochester. It's those little things that we are reminded by throughout. So thanks. We'll talk to him. Then we're going to go down Charles Street, as it were, here in the Baltimore area. We're going to go down and talk to 2 coaches who have taken over 2 programs, who both had head coaches resign after 31 years. No, it's not WashU. We got to go to St. Louis for that. It's Johns Hopkins. Their head coaches, Josh Leffler and Catherine Bixby, will join us to talk about taking over those 2 programs. In the business, we call that an evergreen interview. It's one of those where we felt we had to do it at some point this season to talk to them. We wanted to talk to them earlier, and being the fact we can drive very easily down there and take care of that, we did. So you will hear from both of those coaches coming up. Plus, we'll talk about what has been another crazy week of Division III basketball. I'm starting to get very, very used to things just being chaotic at the beginning of the season, and it's starting to work its way into the women's side. On the men's side, the number of losses in the preseason top 25 is staggering. We can make an argument that those losses are based on maybe that preseason top 25 not being incredibly accurate. Listen, I'm a voter in the top 25. I'd be lying to you if I told you it was an easy thing to figure out. It is not easy. I think there are even more questions on the men's top 25 this year in the preseason than ever before. But the fact that the defending national champs, Babson, who had, 3 losses last season total, already have 2 in their opening 5 games of the season. They lost today to Bowdoin, 80-71. That game was even more out of hand at halftime. They lost earlier, as we mentioned on the last Hoopsville, to Endicott, and they got a Becker win in between that. You also have Hanover losing to Worcester on Saturday night. Worcester had 12 blocks or something in that game. Their defense was ridiculous. Ramapo, we mentioned, had talked. They've at least gotten back off that, recovered and beat William Patterson in conference play this week. Middlebury looks darn good, but Wash U lost today to Mount St. Joseph. And I'm not saying we didn't expect Mount St. Joseph to be good. They were receiving votes in the preseason top 25, but Mount St. Joseph has an ugly loss earlier, which we'll talk about in a moment. They beat Worcester yesterday on Thanksgiving Saturday. 96-74. Wasn't even close. River Falls, we mentioned, had that loss earlier to start things off, but they've gotten back off and done well. North Central took a loss to Whitworth while out playing in the Northwest. Lost by 3. I believe that was in double overtime, if I'm not mistaken. Lewis and Clark, they got a win over easily, so at least got back from that. Marietta continues to look good. Claremont Mud Scripps is off to a horrendous start. Their preseason All-American, Michael Scarlett, is not playing, last I checked. We don't know why. It's something to look into. But their team is not coming together. They've lost to Whitewater to start the season, 82-66. Then lost to Platteville, 74-57. Then lost to George Fox, 91-73. And Puget Sound, 87-74. 0-4 start for Claremont Mud Scripps is not what the doctor ordered to start this season. Not a good sign. We don't know where their preseason All-American is. We'll try and figure that one out. Rochester's off to a decent start. Hasn't played a ton of great teams, though they did beat Stockton, but they lost to Hobart. Guilford took 2 losses. They lost Concordia, Texas. We then talked to them. They then lost to Averett right before Thanksgiving. St. John Fisher is off to a 2-2 start with the losses we mentioned to Hobart. Also lost to Hope, 97-86, but we kind of mentioned that one already. Then defeated Worcester, 90-57. So Worcester has an interesting start to the season, as we mentioned. Wartburg is a decent start at 4-1. Cabrini, surprising loss to Denison, 90-70. Scranton lost to York, 84-70 earlier this start of the season. But they also lost to Widener, 82-75, and lost to Wilkes, 52-45. Not sure what to think of Scranton at 2-3. And then the receiving votes category is a mess. Susquehanna 1-3. Hope is 2-2. Keene State is 2-2. You can go down to MIT, which looked great. They beat Bridgewater State, Eastern Nazarene, and then beat a very good, tough squad, 6th in the country. Then lost to Keene State, 73-67. St. Norbert lost to Oshkosh. We mentioned that earlier on. Marietta and St. Thomas, obviously, in that conversation. So it's been a little bit crazy, to say the least, in the men's top 25. New Jersey City, by the way, off to a 5-0 start. But it's wins over Stevens, Gwinnett Mercy, Drew, Rutgers, Newark, and Farmingdale State. I don't know what to make of those 5. Now, NJCU has got a terrific middle of the season. And Oswego has a loss already. Benedictine is 1-3 on the season to start. They're 1 win to Marion, but lost to Oshkosh, St. Norbert, and North Central to start the season. So it's just crazy in the top 25, and it's crazy outside of the top 25. Let's go back to Augustana. Augustana, the second-ranked team in the country, is 4-0 on the season. Beat Heidelberg, Calvin, Alma, and McMurray. They also played Illinois. Illinois was an exhibition game for Augustana. They lost, no surprise. But the bigger thing is they lost Warford. Now, you remember Warford played last year for about half the season, then was removed from the team. He may or may not have been removed from the school. I got an update on it. I honestly need to go look at that, but it's irrelevant. The point was he wasn't there for the second half of the season. He's out. He tore his ACL in the Illinois game. Devastating. I'll say this, though. I don't know if it's devastating for the team because they played pretty well without him, or they had to adjust, but they played pretty well without him after the fact. But the CCIW is going to be fascinating. Augustana, North Central, I think Carthage is going to be in the mix here. Illinois Wesleyan is looking good. CCIW, with Warford's injury, I think opens up even more than it had prior. That's just on the men's side. Believe it or not, we've had some upheaval on the women's side of things, which definitely has been a little bit less of the norm, as it were. Whitman lost, granted, to non-Division III Eastern Oregon to start the season. Ohio Northern lost to Bluffton to start the season. Wash U, as we mentioned on the last show, losing to Wisconsin Lutheran. That was part of the craziness. George Fox upended Trinity, Texas. Marymount, we mentioned, lost early, has recovered and played well in their next two. DePaul just lost to Wash U 77-75. That's a tight game, to be honest. Puget Sound has a loss. Mass Dartmouth has a loss. Chicago is off to a 3-2 start, having lost to Illinois Wesleyan and lost to Rose-Hulman. Mary Washington is off to a horrible start, 1-3, lost to Washington and Lee, lost to Virginia Wesleyan, beat Lehman, and then lost to Lynchburg. And it's not like those games aren't good. Lynchburg is certainly a good team. W&L looks like they're coming up, and the ODAC women are getting better. But Mary Washington not off to the start. And I certainly do not want to say that their off-season distractions may have had anything to do with it. If you didn't read the Washington Post story, if you didn't read the student paper about what had gone on with the women's program and a case that was in front of them, it's worth reading. But I don't think that would have affected them to go off to a 1-3 start. Illinois Wesley, in the meantime, 3-2. While they got the win over Chicago, they lost to Whitewater. They lost to Wash U, and then they beat Rose-Hulman. So there's a little bit of chaos on the women's side as well. And then in the receiving votes category, Albright 1-2, Bethel 3-1, SUNY Geneseo 3-1, Florham 2-2. Florham lost to Ithaca and Connecticut College. George Fox is 2-2, lost to Bethel and St. Thomas. Moravian 3-1. Maryville is 0-4. We just had Darren Trevelyan on the last show. They were 0-2, had lost to Sewanee and Center. They then went on to lose to Westminster and Otterbein. Now Maryville struggling. Very unlike what they're used to. They hadn't had a 2-game losing streak under Darren Trevelyan ever. Now they've got a 4-game losing streak. Messiah looking good, though, off to a 4-0 start. Babson has a loss. Rose-Hulman's 2-3. Good wins, as we pointed out, but then tough losses. But they've also played a who's who of top 25 teams. Of the 5 games that they started, Rose-Hulman did of the season, 4 of them the top 25 preseason teams. Marietta is off to a good start on the women's side. St. Norbert is 2-2. Just a lot going on in Division III basketball, and it's just surprising. And maybe we shouldn't be surprised. The preseason teams are going out and challenging themselves now more in the beginning of the season. The preseason, they're actually going out there and challenging themselves against D1s, especially on the men's side. But then in the early part of the season, teams are going out there and actually challenging themselves now. It isn't that long ago we used to talk about cupcake schedules. We still kind of see some cupcake schedules in some conferences, to be honest with you. But in others, we're seeing some real challenges now. Some real, hey, we're going to go play some tough teams because it's going to make us better. It's going to make our strength of schedule better. It's going to make our opponent results versus regionally ranked opponents better. It's going to make our opponent's schedule better. There's a lot of conversations now about that, and we're starting to see it. As a result, we see more losses, too. Maybe a team goes and rattles 15 off after this, and it's irrelevant. We are off and running. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville@d3hoops.com, or join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. Hope you will do so and join us. Plenty to talk about, to say the least. Again, coming up, Pat Coleman will talk about 20 years of D3Hoops.com, the one that started it all at D3Sports.com. Of course, football followed, and then I think it was baseball after that, and now we have ice hockey as well. Obviously, we don't all work on those sites, but those are all part of the umbrella. And per that and the passion for Division III, we will warn you now, programming. We're still trying to figure out this coming Thursday's show. This is the cornucopia month for me. I figured it out. I'm going to be out of town for 14 or more days in the whole month of December. I'm covering soccer championships this upcoming weekend down in Greensboro, North Carolina. I cannot be in studio on Thursday. We're trying to figure out if we'll tape a show or maybe figure out something else. Then a week and a half after I get back from soccer, I'll head back a similar road down to Roanoke Valley for the final Stag Bowl in Salem for the foreseeable future. As you all know, they are pulling out with basketball and football from Salem, they being the NCAA. So we'll go down there for the Ghilardi Trophy pregame and everything we do in Salem. And then after Christmas, we're back at the D3Hoops.com Classic, jokingly called the Chuck McBreen Invitational Classic in South Point Arena in Las Vegas. All of that makes for some interesting scheduling. So we hope to put a show together Thursday. We hope to be back in time to do a show next Sunday as well. We'll then put another show on the air Thursday and Sunday before we head out to Roanoke. We then won't have a Thursday show. Back in time to do a Sunday show. Do one more Thursday show before Christmas. We'll not do a show on Christmas Eve. Heck no. Then we're in Vegas. We'll be back and start things back up as normal January 4th. If you didn't follow, don't worry. We'll keep you abreast on Twitter at D3Hoopsville and hashtag Hoopsville. And again, you can follow us everywhere accordingly. Hope you enjoy the show. We got a lot up. Again, we have the Hobart men's basketball coach Tim Sweeney coming up, and we'll talk to both Hopkins coaches coming up about changing the program after 31 years for both. Bill Nelson was there for 31 years, and Nancy Funk was there for 31 years. Speaking of which, Nancy Funk retiring kind of makes me chuckle a little bit because Messiah's women's coach has broken this, is now the 6th winningest coach in Division III history, or active coach, I should say, active coach. Mike Miller broke that record during the Thanksgiving break. He almost has to thank Messiah alum Nancy Funk for retiring because she stepped out of that list, which had held him maybe down at 8 or 9. And Nancy Fay leaving also allowed him to move up to 6th in the active streak in Division III. But that said, he did win his 600th game. So hats off to Coach Mike Miller. Highly suspect we will be talking to him at some point. And we should point out a lot of milestones taking place across Division III right now. And we'll try and keep our best thumb on them as they were. If there's anybody out there that knows that we missed one or should mention one, tweet us, email us. You know the routine. So hope this all makes sense. And hope you're enjoying the show. Hope you're enjoying the kind of new look Hoopsville Studios. There's some of it that's very similar and some that's obviously changed if you're a longtime friend of the show. And more will change in the near future as we adjust and move some things and take some stuff that we haven't hung up yet. You might notice a few jerseys. We've actually had them for a while. We just haven't hung them. You will find us moving things around and situating. So there you go. I hope you really did have a good Thanksgiving. I know we certainly did. Took a little bit of time away from basketball, to be honest, because of that cornucopia month coming up. I wanted to spend some time with the family. But we're off and rolling here on Hoopsville. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Pat Coleman will join me to talk about 20 years of D3Hoops.com, and then we'll go into our coaching conversations as well. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC studios. We'll be back with more Hoopsville right after this.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III.
I did receive academic scholarships. Just being involved on campus, being a leader, all those things combined kind of get me recognized. It's a great experience for me.
My name is Marcus Walker. I was All-State, won a state championship, a high school All-American, and played college and pro ball. I played because I love the game. I grind to be the best. I sweat because I put in work. I'm strong because I believe. When I want to bring it before game time, I come to the house that college basketball built, the CBE. No matter your skill, take it to another level. Elevate your game right here at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center.
It's on us to stop sexual assault
in any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all.
It's on us.
It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us, all of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody, from the WBCA and ABC studios, of course, presented by D3Hoops.com. I'm your host, Dave McHugh. As always, hope you're enjoying the show as we are early into the season and kind of getting used to the Thanksgiving tryptophan, getting that out of our system still. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. Join us on Facebook at Facebook.com/Hoopsville. Think I've covered it all. If I have not, I am sure you will find a way to interact with us in some way, shape, or form. Of course, we're streaming on YouTube, simulcast on Facebook. Of course, the show is presented by, hosted at D3Hoops.com. No surprise, it always has been in its 15 seasons on the air. But we had to have a home, and that home already existed. It was D3Hoops.com. I found it thanks to being a diehard alum who's been public address announcer at my alma mater, Goucher, now 23rd season. Found D3Hoops.com, thought it was pretty cool, found the boards. I was a college student, wasn't the best of my abilities then, but certainly started to appreciate Division III basketball. Got to know this guy named Pat Coleman. Unfortunately, he was at my rival Catholic, but that's a whole nother story. He had found D3Hoops.com to some degree, but the story's better than that. It's 20 years, folks. 20 years since that website launched, which feels like not that much time, and also at the same time feels like an entire lifetime. Joining us via Skype is Pat Coleman, editor-in-chief of the entire enchilada, for the lack of a better term. Pat, thanks for taking the time, sir.
Well, thanks for having me on. And I was just thinking, when you said joined via Skype, I'm like, in the old days, I would have had to drive my butt up to that studio in Towson or whatever and do a thing over the radio, basically, for lack of a better term. Things have certainly changed and changed for the better, but it doesn't seem like it could possibly be 20 years, except sometimes it seems like it's really been 20 years.
Yes, no. There's a lot of people who would say we've been doing this too long, and some who may say we're not doing it long enough. You're right. The technology. I was actually looking at some pictures of you at the Goucher Studios, where we were with our second studios. This is technically our third studio here at home. But 20 years, Pat, the story that you tell of how you started D3 Hoops, or how D3 Hoops evolved, let's call it better than that, is a fascinating one. I don't know if everybody truly understands it. It's a shout out to a conference commissioner who is still there, but really you thought this was going to be an easy thing to do, didn't you?
Yeah. So the genesis of this goes back to a website called Division III Basketball Online, which was run by Steve Ulrich out of the Centennial Conference up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It started in the 95-96 season and into the 96-97 season. And I found out about it because I read about it in the NCAA News, which back then was a printed publication, which would show in your athletic department on a weekly basis, I think, and bi-weekly during the summer or something like that. I read about it. The web was new to me because this was 1996 or so. I was just beginning to think about how to put news and information on the internet for Catholic, where I was working as a sports information director off and on at the time. And read about this, thought it was fascinating. It became one of my bookmarks. I went there fairly frequently. During the course of the 90s, where are we now? The 97-98 offseason, or the lead up to the 97 fall of 97. I noticed that the website wasn't being updated, and Steve and I had some emails back and forth over the course of the year or so. I'd had some suggestions for him that he didn't really implement, probably because of time, I'm sure, being a conference commissioner and all that. And I said, I couldn't help but notice that the website hasn't been updated lately. Would you be interested in me taking it over? And it seemed like a minute and a half later, I got an email with an enthusiastic yes, probably, as I remember it, all caps with an exclamation point. And then immediately following another email with a whole bunch of file attachments and stuff like that. And, I was just thinking, okay, this will be good. I can do this. We'll add women's basketball coverage, and I'll do it for a couple of hours a night, a couple of nights a week. It'll be so much more updated than what was out there before, and things will be great. And then I realized very quickly that, hey, here's this whole network of then about almost 400 schools of SIDs who were willing and enthusiastic about sending me information. It's like, okay. So then it became probably 10 hours a week. And then it was like, oh, every night, hey, it would be great if we had all the scores on the website. It's like, yeah, that would be a really good idea, because the stuff that's in the newspaper in the, the 5.5 point type was really just not very comprehensive at all. So it was like, put together a scoreboard every night and highlights on the website, and then message board, as you mentioned, and columns, and then you do this, and we live broadcast and podcast, and then now there's a football site, and then there's a baseball site, and then a hockey site, and all these other things. And yeah, that's 20 years in a nutshell right there. That's basically how we went from it not being done by me to it being done by me and many other people, and now being done mostly by the other people.
Yeah, I mean, it's evolved, to say the least. I remember when you first called me. I don't remember if I was doing the show first or you called me to do a game with you. One of the two things happened first. The game, ironically, was at Catholic, did not feature Goucher. Probably for our sake, a good thing. I know it took it seriously. I've now branched off and am now a broadcaster from that. I had the opportunity to do Hoopsville, and you finally realized we were serious. We used D3 Hoops on the show often because we would sit there going, hey, no one's read these scores online. We should read them for you. Wait, you have read these scores online? Oh, our bad. And you kind of realized we were serious and have helped us get off the ground, and now we're an entire other beast, as it were, that goes along with D3 Hoops. But, Pat, I mean, it's almost synonymous that, D3 Hoops has existed. We've always gone to Salem. That will change. The future really has changed. We've kind of adopted that change, as it were, in the last couple of years. You, realizing that your time is valuable, have dedicated time to football and let hoops kind of go a little bit, folks. Trust me, behind the scenes, he can't let it go totally because we have questions. But seriously,
they keep pulling me back in.
They keep pulling you back in. Just when you think you're gone, we pull you back in. But seriously, the evolution of this website, it's not like we're going anywhere. This is 20 years. I'm sure it'll be around for 20 more. But what has become is outstanding, Pat.
Oh, just the thought of 20 more years was a mind mixer for me for a second.
Yeah,
there was a time, if you remember back when we had 48-team tournaments in men's basketball and 50-team tournaments in women's basketball. It was right around 2001 or so. There was this movement to start to expand them. And the thought was there was a timeline put out that by 2005, we'll have, in 2006, we'll have expanded tournaments, expanded brackets in a lot of sports in NCAA Division III. And at that point, I remember reading that and thinking, oh, wow, we're actually going to be around when that happens. And there was a time in, 2000, 2001 or so when the tech economy just kind of went in the toilet, and it's like, I was not really necessarily sure that we were going to continue to do this. I'd seen a lot of people who had similar type websites covering other niche sports, some of them even covering other Division III sports, and they just kind of went away because they couldn't find enough money to do it, or they couldn't find enough time to do it. You talked about my time being valuable. I think of it as my time being finite. I just could not do an extra 40 hours a week on top of the rest of my life from August through April. I could still do it from August through January, and then help out behind the scenes and kind of dive back in March when everybody could use a little shot in the arm. But the thought that it's become this longevity thing is really because of tireless dedication, and not just by me, and I mean tireless, but with Gordon joining very early on back in 1999 or so, people like you, and then people who have come and gone who kind of provided that shot in the arm for several years and then went on to other things in their life. And you were talking about broadcasting, for example. Think about all the people that we've broadcast with. Every once in a while I keep seeing John Sadak's name, former Rowan broadcaster who's doing stuff for Westwood One. We've talked about Joe Davis multiple times. We've got other guys who are Wayne Randazzo, who we've done stuff with, is doing studio work, was with the Mets, now with the Cubs, or vice versa. I can't remember which. People all over the place that we have worked with and who continue to have a love for Division III, and yet we have we've continued to find more people to help us do this website, because it is like the student athletes. It's a labor of love for them, and it's a labor of love for us. I mean, people get money, but not a lot, because not a lot comes in. I don't have a lot to give out, but it's just basically the way it is, and it's kind of a Division III model, and that's sort of okay.
When you look back at 20 years so far, this might be a hard one. By the way, something you tweeted earlier today kind of caught me, that your oldest turned 20 a couple days ago, and now this has turned 20, and I shivered at both, because that actually gave it a kind of a reference. Okay, 20 years, great. Wait, your oldest is 20? I remember when she was oh, geez, Pat, 20. Like, it hits you. But what might be your favorite memory? Can you have a favorite memory from these 20 years?
Dave, I can have one favorite memory. Think about it for a second.
Yeah, that was an easy one.
Getting to call my alma mater winning the national championship game in 2001. Thankfully, that happened, because that allows me to pick a favorite moment.
That's true. That's a good point. That was my first Salem, by the way.
I'm allowed to have that as a favorite moment back
in
2001. Otherwise, it'll be really difficult. But I think some of the things that I've gotten to do that I've really enjoyed, Ray Martell and I took a road trip very early on. I think this was in 2000, where we stopped. We came out of D.C. and we stopped in Pittsburgh on Friday night and saw the WashU women break what was then the record for longest winning streak in NCAA women's basketball. And then we continued on, we just hung a left in Pittsburgh and continued on to Bloomington, Illinois, where we went to the Shark Center and saw Illinois Wesleyan, especially the place that was at the time, seeing that for the first time and all the stuff going on around there. That's a road trip I really enjoyed. I have really enjoyed getting to go places and do things and be in lots of, medium, sometimes large, sometimes really small towns all across America, crisscrossing the country, often in cars, to see just some really cool things and meet cool people, and just to be able to shine a light on some of the awesome things that happen in NCAA Division III athletics that, if not for us and this site and the other sites in the network, people just wouldn't really know about.
Yeah, I mean, the road trips, the Tour de Tejas, is that what you called it?
Absolutely.
You had the trip down in Atlanta. You had I remember I was talking to Ann, my wife, the other day about when web streaming was really coming along. You went on a tour, was it of New York? And I think you dropped by SUNY Maritime or somebody a little off the wall, and no one was streaming the game, and you're like, let me try something. At the time, I think we were on Ustream. You pulled out your phone, and I'm sitting there going, I'm watching Pat stream a game from courtside. This is getting ridiculous.
Medgar Evers.
Medgar Evers. That was it. Yes.
Yeah, craziness. Yes, nobody was streaming the game, and it was somewhat interesting. So I had the Ustream app on my and to think. I mean, that was okay. So that's probably 2012. I guess that's reasonable that could have been done in 2012. But some of the other things that we've done by patching baling wire together and stone knives and bear skins to get stuff on the air is just kind of crazy. Now this stuff is mainstream and everybody does it. But once upon a time, we were still stringing telephone cable all across gymnasiums and hoping that somebody was on the other end to pick up and that we weren't affiliated with some audio provider that was going to go belly up the morning of and not tell anybody.
That's the truth. Again, we used to be the only ones who audio streamed NCAA games and video streamed NCAA games. Now everybody does it, and that's not a bad thing.
No,
it's just the evolution. It helps us save a little time. Lets us do whip around shows, for example.
That was when I was thinking about this the other day too. Is that all the time that I would have spent the first week of March or second week of November, like I would have been for football just now, trying to arrange broadcasters in like 5 or 6 places and arrange for rights and fill out all these forms and make sure that all the technology was working and everybody had what they needed. I don't have to do that. I kind of miss. I miss calling games personally. Yeah. I know you call a lot of games. I don't call a lot of games anymore. But I really enjoy getting to watch stuff and that everybody gets to watch it.
Yeah, honestly, I call less games that I want to call, like the NCAA tournament games. It was so much fun to be at a weekend in the first and second weekend calling games going on. We only get those once in a while now. So I can understand that. Of course, you're fully immersed in football. We'll get to that in a moment, but what you've done with hoops has certainly come along with accolades. People, pat your back, shake your hand, etc. But you also, from COSIDA, got the Jake Wade Award, which is it? Yeah, there it is, right over your shoulder. Well done, sir.
Actually, I think it's behind this shot of Tommy Johnny game at Target Field. So that's my bad. I should make sure it's more front and center. I haven't like put a nail in the wall or anything. You can see I'm mostly just covering the craziness of my bookshelf.
Yeah, we put too many nails into our wall. We're thinking about repainting. It's so much marked up. But it has meant this. What does it mean to you that what ended up being an email or a phone call to Steve Ulrich has turned into a passion that you are honored for?
It's tough for it. That's a tough question to answer, because I think always the mantra is it's not about us, and it shouldn't be about us. It should be about the student athletes. I'm grateful that people enjoy it and that people follow it and that people want it to continue, because if people didn't want it to persist, if SIDs didn't want to keep providing information, if people didn't come and click on the site and hopefully please occasionally click on some ads or buy a sweatshirt or something like that, then we just wouldn't be able to do it. For me, as a guy who was a full-time journalist for many, many years, to still have this outlet to be a journalist where, lots of places former journalists don't get to be journalists anymore, and I still get to do it, which is fantastic. It's a lot of fun. I think that's what makes it for me. The fact that people still continue to come, and that's what's enjoyable for me. And then, getting to read the news stories and getting to know the new things that happen in Division III, because it's new every year, especially in basketball. Maybe not so much in football, but in basketball, it's new every year, right? And certainly new every 4 years. It's a bunch of new kids and new stories, and it's just that's what's meaningful for me, is that otherwise, without this, nowadays you could say it probably would be done by somebody, but I don't think it would be done necessarily as well or in the same way. I really like bringing a sense of journalistic excellence to NCAA Division III, which otherwise, you wouldn't get to read about.
Yeah, and you talk about the great stories. You talk about WashU, still the second longest NCAA tournament win streak in all divisions. You talk about your alma mater. That was my first Salem. That ended up hooking me, ironically enough. And there's a lot of other great stories we see every day. You're obviously more focused on football. I'd be remiss if we didn't get the opportunity to at least say what is going on with you guys. You had, I would argue, a quiet weekend. I obviously follow things on the side with football because I help you guys out when needed, especially on a weekly basis. But I remember kind of looking at scores going, oh, well, this wasn't that exciting.
No, it really wasn't. And we'll talk about it at length on the podcast, which will tomorrow. But it was epically bad in a sense. It wasn't the highest average margin of victory for a second round, but it's the first second round since we've had a full 32 team bracket that we didn't have one game that was at least within 10 points. So the interesting stories on the football side are Frostburg State's been on this tear of late, where they won at Wittenberg by 28 and they won at W&J by 23, and now they get to go to Mount Union, so we'll see how that goes.
Oh, boy.
But Mount Union they haven't lost, but they haven't they've shown some aura of possible vincibility, if that's the opposite of invincibility, because John Carroll took them down to the final minute. And in looking at all these bad second rounds in previous years, often the average was punctuated by Mount Union winning by 59, Mount Union winning by 42, Mount Union winning by whatever. I mean, they only won by I don't have the chart in front of me. It's 30 something, 33 points maybe on Saturday.
That's close.
Something. Yeah, but it'll be interesting because I would say we haven't been happy with how the bracket was put together this year, and you may that may be a familiar refrain in Division III circles, but it's been fun over there. Definitely stop on over to d3football.com if you have a day between basketball games.
You mention it makes me think of it. Also, kind of a new evolution of the future, D3 talent. Don't know if you want to give a quick mention. We will have the the guy who helped create that for us on a future show. But do you want to give a shout out for the D3 talent push?
I do. And this has been really fun for us. So Sam Borst-Smith, you folks may remember him as All-American point guard, University of Rochester, approached us at D3sports.com, Dave, and then Dave passed it. Dave, I speak of you in the third person as if you weren't here.
I do too.
I'm speaking to your audience.
Yes.
Dave of, I don't know, maybe it's over there.
You're right. Good point.
Yes. All right. Anyway, so Gordon Mann and I had a couple conversations with Sam, and he brought this idea. It was like how to help the Division III student athlete kind of brand themselves. And as we've watched the NCAA do some things around NCAA Division III branding and put a few more resources behind covering NCAA Division III over the course of the past several years, what we really wanted to do is then kind of take that a step further. We've been branding Division III since 1997, but we have not done what we could, I think, to help the student athletes have a sense of self is probably a little bit too high-minded, but not by much, about where Division III stands in the echelon, right? I mean, people, if you're a D3 guy and you go to a open gym or something like that, or whatever, you're shooting around with guys, and if you're an alum and you're shooting around with the guys, I went to Austin P. I don't know, but you're fancy because you went to D1 school, right? At the Division III student athletes should be able to have the same amount of pride as to what they accomplished and what they did in order to play in college, because it's not just you show up and they roll the balls out and you go play for 4 years. That is just not how it works. Talent runs deep in NCAA Division III, and that was one of the phrases that we wanted to help people use to help describe their Division III student athlete experience and talk about it in a way that you can have some pride about. We want Division III alums to have that same pride in Division III that we do in doing this, that helps fuel us. So take a look at the D3 Talent hashtag on Instagram or on Twitter, D3 Talent on Twitter, D3 Talent on Facebook, D3 Talent on Instagram, and also some gear that Sam helped us design as well. That's available for you for you to take a look at. That sort of stuff should be on d3hoops.com. I will help make sure that happens, especially for Cyber Monday. But in all honesty, we really want to make this a place where the student athlete can showcase themselves. So hashtag D3 Talent on like your highlight films or the things that you do off the floor, off the playing surface, off the ice, off the field as well, because we want to showcase the well-rounded student athlete in NCAA Division III. So hashtag that stuff. We will redistribute it on our platforms because we want to make sure that the word gets out there about all the awesome things that happen at NCAA Division III.
Well said, sir. And congratulations again on 20 years, 21st season, as it were. It's almost legal to drink. The website is almost legal to drink.
Well, that's good because sometimes it's driven me in that direction.
Yeah, well, fair point. I appreciate you taking the time. Obviously busy with football. You will have your podcast later tonight. You can find it at d3football.com when it is launched, and et cetera, and obviously the D3 Talent. Appreciate it. You know the drill, and you are not immune to this drill, sir. We always leave the final word to the guest. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with those who may be tuning in?
No, in all honesty, well, I mean, I guess yes, because I'm going to talk. Nothing planned, I guess. I should have. I knew this. I'm just thankful that there are people who are willing to continue the D3Hoops.com legacy on days and now entire seasons where I just don't have the time or the mental bandwidth to be able to do it. For years now already, even though Gordon Mann took over the website formally not quite 2 years ago, but he had been running D3 Hoops in November and December for a couple years before that too, and basically kind of dragged me to the finish line the previous season. If not for folks like him, Ryan Scott, you people even further behind the scenes, D3Hoops.com would not be able to continue in the manner that it has. And I'm very grateful that something that I poured so many years and so many hours into is able to continue without me having to do so much of the heavy lifting.
Well, we appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for the call, as it were. I think that's how we first communicated. I don't think we emailed, but thanks for the call. And then it went from there, as it were. Congratulations. I'll look forward to seeing you in Salem. Love the bow tie.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you down the road as well. And enjoy the rest of the football season. And we'll see you when you show up behind the scenes. Probably tomorrow.
I just had to class up the joint a little bit, sir.
Well done. Well done indeed. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Pat Coleman joining us from, let's call it the D3 Football Studios. That's where he is in Minnesota, getting ready for their podcast tonight, covering the second round of the D3 football playoffs. Appreciate him taking the time. Again, 20 years at D3Hoops.com. I've noticed a bunch of people on Twitter acknowledging that as well. Again, thanks to Pat for his ideas behind that. And I guess in a way, thanks to Steve Ulrich for having a website that Pat wanted to update. That's pretty much how this thing all got started, and it's all been downhill since, and especially this show. Speaking of this show, we got to take a break. When we come back, we'll get into some conversations with coaches. Hobart's off to a 2-0 start with 2 wins over top 25 teams. What's that mean for the Statesmen? Are they a team to watch in the East this year? Well, we'll find out from Tim Sweeney. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC studios. Presented proudly by D3Hoops.com.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that. A lot more.
Sure, the game is important. But as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics. And in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
This is why we love sports. It's in the way they play, free from the pressures and all the money talk. Playing for simply the love of the game, where everyone has a shot at their definition of success on and off the field. This is what we love about sports, and what we can still love about college sports.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com.
College basketball lives in Kansas City at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center. The College Basketball Experience is the place to get your game on. It's not a museum, it's an experience you won't forget. Discover the history of the game in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, featuring the Gallery of Honor, Mentor's Circle, and Honor Theater. Suit up in the latest CBE logoed Nike gear at the CBE Hoop Shop. Elevate your game today and visit the house that college basketball built.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that. A lot more.
Sure, the game is important. But as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics. And in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
This is why we love sports. It's in the way they play, free from the pressures and all the money talk. Playing for simply the love of the game, where everyone has a shot at their definition of success on and off the field. This is what we love about sports, and what we can still love about college sports.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoops or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com, or join us on Facebook, Facebook.com/Hoopsville. Hope you followed along. We will eventually get our famous little crawl going at the bottom of the screen as well. We changed software in the offseason. Actually, the same software we've been using, but the upgrades were significant. And I just didn't have enough time to play with it. And sometimes you really don't know what works and doesn't work till you hit the air. And so some of those things are limited. And again, as you can see, there's a huge staff here who works on this show. Well, there used to be a huge staff here that used to work on this show, or maybe that I've got multiple personalities. One of the two. Anyway, interact with us. Love to hear from you. Hope you're doing well. Preseason top 25s. We've talked about how difficult they are. Sometimes it's tough to figure out. Who is St. John Fisher with a coaching change, lost their best center, etc.? Who is Rochester? Well, they're off to a 4-1 start, even though they lost a lot of people from last year, but they got a good coach. One team's knocked off both of them. Hobart. Maybe asking Hobart? Well, they got predicted to win the Liberty League this season. A lot of people have been talking to me about the Statesmen, saying there just may be something going up there in the Finger Lakes that is worth watching. What do we make of it? I'm not really sure, to be honest. But that's why we decided to have coaches on the show. Tim Sweeney joins us on the Hoopsville hotline to talk about his Statesman. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville, sir.
Dave, thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Appreciate you taking the time. Quick note to everybody out there, we literally asked him last minute to join us, and I appreciate him doing that. First of all, I hope you had a good Thanksgiving. It had to be a good Thanksgiving if you started 2-0 with 2 wins over top 25 teams.
Yeah, Dave, it sure was. Very, very pleased with our start at this point. Two very quality teams, and we're certainly excited. But we know it's a long season, and still a lot to be accomplished. So, but definitely excited about the beginning.
So the beginning's good, and again, Liberty League picked you guys to win this one. I feel like this almost feels like about the year everyone expected Hobart to make the turn under your guidance. Is that a fair say? I mean, every coach needs a few years to kind of get things up and running under his own regime, as it were. Is that a fair say that this year is a good year to expect good things from Hobart, or are we maybe all jumping the gun?
Well, I think, first of all, the program was in terrific shape when I arrived. I mean, Coach Neer has done a fantastic job with the program. And, I really think in a lot of ways, hopefully, from our standpoint, we've been able to reload. And I think you're starting to see a core group of guys mature a little bit. We're playing juniors and sophomores, and we have one terrific senior captain. And so I think you're starting to see a team mature a little bit. And quite frankly, using some disappointment late in the season last year, making the conference championship game and coming up short. And I think that's really propelled this group of young men to have a great spring, summer, fall, and sort of, led us to this point.
Quickly, let's talk about Coach Neer just to make sure we don't forget about it. You know Coach Neer maybe as well as you know your own father. You played under him and then coached under him from 99 to 2006. Obviously played at Rochester. Was the reason you came to Hobart because of Mike? You were an associate head coach at Elon University, if anyone's not familiar. Was the idea to come to Hobart because Mike had been there? Did he do the prototypical, let me give the guy a call I know well, or was the draw to return to upstate New York also just as strong?
Well, I certainly think that was a factor, Coach having been here at Hobart. I actually noticed on the website that it's the 20-year anniversary here. It makes me feel really old because I feel like I was playing when the website was just kind of getting started.
You were.
So, this is, being a Division III player myself, certainly having family in New York, and those are also contributing reasons. But no question about it, Coach Neer being at Hobart, there was a level of familiarity that I had with the program. Mike Hanna, a longtime athletic director here, who's actually retiring here at the end of the month. At end of December, was a big factor in being attracted to the position. So, yeah, I think certainly the connection to Coach Neer was huge and played a role in it.
So what has been maybe the biggest accomplishment you guys have pulled off now that in your coaching realm, as it were, at Hobart? When you took over for Coach Neer, we kind of knew what Hobart, he always had big men, so we always had big men, but it seemed like every coach has their own fingerprint on it. So what's your fingerprint and what's the accomplishment you guys have made so far in the term that you've been there?
Well, quite frankly, I think we still have a lot left to accomplish. I'm not sure, we've had anything concrete that we can point to and say, hey, we've arrived or we've accomplished this or that. I think, from myself and through the program, I think there's a hunger to achieve and to win a conference championship if we're able to, and to cement some legacy here at Hobart. There were some teams in front of us, and currently have an assistant coach, Stephon Thompson, who played here and was on some of those championship teams, and I think that's something from myself to everyone in the program that we aspire to. So in many ways, Dave, I don't think we've accomplished anything, but to answer your question, I think certainly my style is a lot different than Coach Neer. I'm a lot shorter. We probably don't have the stable of big men that he's had over the years, but at the same time, I think, we're trying to lay an imprint of a program that plays extremely hard, plays together, and is constantly looking to improve. And, in that vein, I think I've probably stolen a little bit from every coach I've been fortunate to work with. So there's a little bit of a blend.
I am literally looking for the picture I was sent of you and Coach Neer, because you mentioned height, and I wasn't going to get to it, but you mentioned height, and I'm like, all right, now we have no choice. We've got to mention it, because Ken DeBolt, your terrific SID at Hobart Williams Smith, sent it along to us. Here it is. Finally got it. We got it in the system, I hope, figuring this out. Bear with us, folks. Here we go. We're putting it up on the screen now. You're not as short as you make yourself seem, but Mike is kind of looking down a little at you.
A little bit.
When you look at the program you've got now, you got 2 wins over top 25 teams. You mentioned the one senior on the squad. Otherwise, this is a bunch of underclassmen. You're picked to win the Liberty League. You're off to a pretty good start with 4 guys in double figures, nearly 5. Is this the start you were hoping for? Is this better than you were hoping for? What do we look at when we look at this beginning?
Well, I think any coach would tell you there's always positives and negatives. Certainly the results are there. We're thrilled to grab 2 wins like this early in the season. At the same time, our players and our program, we're aware that we have a lot of areas where we need to improve. Specifically, I think, we're turning the ball over at a ridiculous rate. There's other little things here and there that, we certainly have to improve upon. And, it doesn't get any easier for us as we have to travel to Brockport on Tuesday, and that's a program with a deep tradition and a very, very difficult place to play. So, we're on edge. We're still preparing. We're thrilled with the results, but like any coach, I'm going to tell you that there's a lot of areas where we can get better. And I think specifically, anybody can look at it. Doesn't need to be a rocket scientist, and we need to cut down on our turnovers.
You have an interesting schedule this season. You started the first 2 games with games at home against St. John Fisher, who was ranked in the preseason, and Rochester, who made it nearly knocking on the Final Four last year. You now hit a long road run. You don't return home until January 12th when you play Bard. You'll go to Rockport, to Union, to Vassar, obviously nearby, but still, to Carnegie Mellon, then to SUNY IT. Then you're down at Randolph-Macon in Ashland, Virginia to play Rowan, and then somebody else the following day over the Christmas holiday. Then you're at RIT, then you're at Ithaca, then you're at RPI before you're finally home. This is not an easy stretch coming up by any definition, because you guys are only going to see your your home for practice. How do you get the guys ready for this one?
First of all, thanks for reading that.
You're welcome.
I feel like, it feels a little worse now. I feel like a glutton for punishment.
That was the purpose.
No, I think we've put the schedule together to prepare ourselves for an incredibly difficult conference, season. And I think the Liberty League is on upswing with 3 teams in the NCAA tournament last year. There's some terrific teams and coaches in our conference. So, our schedule is designed to prepare us for that. And I think going on the road, now a little bit of it, Dave, has to do with our conference playing games in December now, and so we can't control, who we travel to or who we host. So that played a little bit of a role, as well as we always like to go to a tournament. And this year we're fortunate to go down to Randolph-Macon. And so, it's not by design necessarily, but we're not blinking at the idea of being on the road like that. I think our guys are going to be prepared. We're going to continue to work hard, and they realize that each one of these games is a unique challenge in its own right.
We should point out 7 of the last 9 games are at home, all in conference play. Yeah, so a little bit of a weirdly balanced conference schedule. And a little bit of a jumping through. Everybody's kind of jumping through the Northeast right now with how many things have changed in conferences. Liberty League and Empire 8 being the 2 big ones who seem to be swapping partners, as it were. How hard is that, though, for you or any coach up there, not knowing what the conference situation is going to be from a year-to-year basis when you're trying to schedule. It's settled a little bit. It's calmed down a little bit. But for a couple of years there, you guys really didn't know who your conference foes were going to be, and maybe you still don't know.
Yeah, it was definitely quirky this past summer leading into this year because of Ithaca coming to the league, and great addition to the league, and it balances us out at 10 teams. But because of that, we lost 2 non-conference games, and I think that sort of threw all of the coaches in the league off a little bit in terms of trying to schedule games, when to play them. I think a lot of long time series that were played at certain dates had to be moved, and so you kind of get that chaos for a little bit. But hopefully. I'm not aware of any other teams joining our league, so I'm hoping there's a little bit of stability here over the next couple of years.
Well, hopefully that'll help with the scheduling. As we're talking about this team a little bit, we kind of hinted at it. Dan Messino leaving it away at 16.5 points. Jamal Lucas, 14 points. Colin Doherty, 12. And Tucker Lesko, 11. Obviously just through 2 games, so some of that's maybe not perfectly aligned to what this team will look like. But are you guys an inside-outside team? Are you a balanced team? And what do we make up if we ever were to watch a Hobart game online?
Sure. I think, I would describe us as a balanced team for sure. I think we have multiple players that can make plays. We do try to play inside out. I think, on any given night, we have multiple guys that can, as proven, can kind of get into that 15 to 20 point range. And one thing we really emphasize and try to enjoy is the fact that we play for each other and we play together. And I think, John Wooden said it best, when no one's concerned with who gets the credit, it's amazing what you can accomplish. And I think, as cliched as that is, I really believe that our players have internalized that and bought into that. And so we've got a lot of different people that can hurt you. And I think, one other aspect that goes a little bit unnoticed that I'd like to point out is that the level of our practices, because of our depth, has really improved. And you get guys that don't get a lot of publicity, but, like sophomore Jake Preston, junior Court Williams. I mean, these are guys that aren't going to get a lot of publicity, but have really improved their games from one year to the next and just ramp up the level of our practices, which is absolutely huge.
We should point out, by the way, your cousin Shane was a starting quarterback for the Hope football team the past 3 seasons, I've been told. Have you been trying to give him advice on the football field as well?
No advice. He's the athlete in the family. He got all the talent. So I let him do his thing, and if he has any advice for me, I'll take it.
You say that so nonchalantly, considering how well you played at Rochester, sir. I think you're still second in total amount of games. Did Sam Boris-Smith pass you, or somebody recently, I think, passed you on that category?
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure.
I didn't think you were keeping track. We mentioned Dan Messino. Ken DeBolt is friendly enough to remind me that he is the son of Mike Messino, who graduated all-time leading scorer. So it's nice. I mean, you have a lot of family ties. He's in the Hall of Fame as well. His the grandfather Al played for the Milwaukee Hawks. You kind of have a nice little mix there with Dan.
Yeah, we're thrilled to have Dan on board, and as you mentioned, his father had a terrific career at Hobart, and the neat thing about Dan is that we recruited him very hard for a number of years, and but at the end of the day, he really fell in love with Hobart, the school, and it's kind of a neat side story that his father played here, but I can say with a lot of confidence that he really fell in love with the guys on the team and our program. So it's sort of a unique thing. He's creating his own legacy, writing his own chapter, but we get to enjoy guys like you and I get to enjoy the fact that his dad, had quite the career here, and it's pretty neat for their family to be able to watch this. We also have another young man in this freshman class whose father played at Hobart and was the longtime head coach at Bridgeton Academy. Whit LeJour, his son Jack, plays for us. So we have a pretty neat, legacy thing going on here with Hobart basketball, and we're thrilled with that.
Yeah, it's certainly true. And I love the Hobart campus. I got to get up there for a game sometime. But I visited when I was a college student. Hobart waitlisted me, just for the record.
Oh, boy. Wow.
They probably weren't wrong. Let's be honest. But speaking of strange things, this one I got to finish up with. Ken did all the hard work. 21 turnovers in the win against Rochester. You're 3-0 under you as head coach when committing more than 20 turnovers. That's usually the polar opposite of what I hear coaches preaching. And I heard you earlier saying you have to take care of the ball, but it also seems to work when you turn the ball over.
Well, Dave, I think that's pretty much evidence that I have no idea what I'm doing. So, I think it's certainly a quirky one. Appreciate that if our players are listening. Hopefully, they're not internalizing that. But I think I can't explain that one, Dave.
Okay. Well, we'll keep an eye on it, and if you keep turning the ball over and keep winning, maybe you've got a new technique you need to stick with. Just a thought.
Well, one thing that might tie this neatly in a bow for you is one great memory I have, and this sort of contributes hopefully to this program tonight and the website, is my junior year. We were fortunate to make a deep run in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
I think it was the original Around the Nation column. Coach Neer actually, was interviewed for an article, and it was about our guard play, which I happen to be one of the guards on the team, and I believe he referred to me as a blind mouse. So hopefully. I think we've come full circle. The blind mouse is now, a head coach, and accordingly, our team's throwing the ball all over the place.
I've usually heard that term associated with officials. I've never heard that term associated with one's own guard.
I'm pretty sure that's accurate.
I don't know if our archives necessarily go back that far, but I will make a call to confirm that. It won't happen on the show, but we will have an update. Blind mouse, that's outstanding. Tim, congratulations on a tremendous start there for the season. Again, it was one of those where at the beginning, in the preseason, someone had said to me, hey, keep an eye on Hobart. I'm like, okay. I usually watch the Liberty League with interest. And then you guys kind of came out of the gates guns a-blazing, as it were. Good luck on the next road trip here. If you're ever looking for a Christmas holiday tournament, let me know. I got a good one in mind. And in the meantime, we always give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuning in?
Thanks, Dave, for having me on the show and having our program, getting some publicity. I think it's fantastic what the website and the show does for Division III, and it's a neat thing that coaches, administrators, players, everyone can enjoy. So just really appreciate that, and appreciate the opportunity to join you and be on here and have some good laughs and talk about our team. So wish you the best, and thank you very much.
Well, thank you, sir. Take care. Good luck the rest of the way. I'm sure we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
Absolutely. Tim Sweeney joining us from Hobart. The men's team off to a 2-0 start, as we mentioned, over top 25. St. John Fisher and Rochester. We'll see where they rank. I think Rochester stays in. St. John Fisher, we'll see if they stay in the new top 25 poll that comes out tomorrow. Again, they start a 10-game road trip tomorrow. They are out of town until January 12th for games. They'll be on the road at Brockport. That should be a really good game. On the road against Union and Vassar in conference play. Then on the road against Carnegie Mellon, SUNY IT before the holidays. Then down at Randolph-Macon. It's too bad I'll be out in Vegas. I would love to go to that tournament. And then a couple conference games before they finally get home on January 12th to get back into the home stretch. And then from there, again, they're home for most of it. I said 7 of the last 9. If you count the games on January 12th, it's actually 9 of their last 13, I believe, are at home. So a big home stretch on the backside for Hobart. Going to take a break. When we come back, we'll head down Charles Street, as they say, down here in Baltimore. We'll head down there to talk to the 2 coaches who are now running the Johns Hopkins men's and women's basketball programs. For the first time in more than 30 years, it's not Bill Nelson and it's not Nancy Funk. We'll talk to both coaches, Josh Leffler and Catherine Bixby. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC studios. Back with more after this.
Division III allows you to give yourself to other things.
Having that free time allows me to pursue the things that I want to pursue.
Division III athletics affords students the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport.
It allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I know how powerful words can be. The term gay doesn't mean stupid, lame, or less than.
So I pledge to speak up if I hear the term gay used in a derogatory way or any other homophobic terms.
If you can play in Division III.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and my teammates unconditionally accepted me as part of their family. So now I pledge to do the same for others. If you can play in Division III.
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. It helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at d3hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Division III allows you to give yourself to other things.
Having that free time allows me to pursue the things that I want to pursue.
Division III athletics affords students the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport.
It allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
Welcome back to Hoopsville. I'm your host, Dave McHugh, clearly not in the WBCA NABC studios. We're here at Gold Farm Gymnasium on the campus of Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, Maryland. For us, it's basically a short little drive down the street. We were here last year when, to be honest, I got a sense that we needed to go talk to Bill Nelson, the men's head coach. Something told me that Bill's career would be drawn to a close at some point in the near future. Did not realize it would be the end of last season, but it turned out to be the end of last season. One mistake we made is we didn't talk to Nancy Funk, who shortly after Bill's decision decided to retire herself. The result was Johns Hopkins ended up with 2 head coaching opportunities for someone new and someone probably a little bit younger than Bill and Nancy. In walked Josh Loeffler and in walked Catherine Bixby from varying locations to take over these 2 programs. And I figured early in the season, it's about time we actually talk to them and find out what it's like to transition these 2 programs from long-standing head coaches, 31 years, same as Nancy Fay, by the way, at WashU, and move it towards something else. So we got a chance to do that, and joining me first is Josh Loeffler. Of course, we have the women's team warming up in the background, which is totally D3, if it were. But thanks for joining me here on the show, and welcome to Hopkins.
Thanks for having me, Dave. Appreciate it.
We should point out to anybody who doesn't know the history, you do have D3 background, assistant coach at Williams, the head coach at Stevenson, before you decided to dip your toe and actually got most of your body into the water of D1 with a few years in assistant, including right up the street at Loyola, Maryland. Now you're back in D3. Yeah, you've got to be excited about that to some degree, but you're probably just as excited about having a head coaching opportunity.
Yeah, I'm mostly excited to be the head coach at Johns Hopkins. This was a job I was really, excited to pursue, and very happy that they would consider me in the process, and ecstatic that it went the way it did, and I'm here as the head coach.
Highly sought after job. There were a lot of people who wanted this job. Even reports that Hopkins went out there and headhunted to some degree. They really wanted a good coach to come in here. For you to then emerge out of that group has got to feel pretty good for yourself.
Yeah, or worried about the criteria for the selection. I'm not really sure.
Sure.
There's a chance that they meant to hire someone else and sent the invite to the wrong address. You know what I mean?
Oops. It's too late now.
but to be named the head coach here was really it was just a tremendous feeling. Because I think very highly of this institution and athletic department, and that's what this came down to. Is I wanted the job because of how highly I view this place. So it's tremendous.
And of course, you've had a different perspective of it, literally up the street at Loyola, Maryland as an assistant. When Bill Nelson retired, was that the point where you're like, okay, I'm going for the job, I want that job, or did you have a feeling you wanted this job before that?
I've talked about Johns Hopkins as the place that I could see really being attractive to me for a long time. I think a lot of people have.
Sure.
It's a great place. It's a school that really stands out in terms of its national reputation and international reputation academically, and it's unique in that they approach things here in a first-class manner all around athletically. It's a wonderful department that provides tremendous resources for their student athletes. So I've always looked at Johns Hopkins as a great job, And yeah, when Bill retired, obviously you start to think about things a little more, a little more solidly, just because it's a real thing, and it could be, who knows, maybe a possibility. And then that's when things start to crystallize a little bit more, and things fell into place.
One of those rare people could probably hand deliver their resume.
Yeah.
Versus anybody else around the country.
Yeah.
When you look at the academics, you're not that unfamiliar with them. You were at Williams. You know what the academic level of expectations are, especially in recruiting. Stevens certainly has a certain level of expectation. And a lot of the schools you were as a D1 assistant, Lafayette and Loyola Maryland, there are no slouches academically either. So this feels like a very, I don't want to say easy fit for you, but there's not a lot of transitional when it comes to expectations academically about student athletes that you're going to eventually recruit.
I think I've been lucky in my transition that I've worked at schools that have high academic requirements for the incoming student athletes. So it wasn't like I was dealing with a brand new set of parameters.
Right.
Obviously, any job you take, there's details about that institution and the way things work there that are unique and different from any other job you've had. But I do feel fortunate that I've worked at high academic institutions almost exclusively throughout my career. That has made the transition a slightly easier one, I hope.
Transition's going to be hard no matter what. Obviously, Bill was here for 31 years.
Yeah.
There's a whole institution literally around the men's basketball program with what Bill, and even the women's program with what Nancy built. When you walked in the door, though, what did you first decide we need to either not change, but do differently or find differently, or whatever the case may be, to make it more of yourself and help everybody kind of transition into a new era, as it were?
I don't think I thought much about change or really, I don't like this, so I'm going to do this or anything. I think I just tried to be myself from the day I got here and tried to run a program the way I would run it, no matter who I was following or what school I was at. Now, I think I'm accustomed to working in a school like Johns Hopkins, schools that are similar. This place, like I said, is an entirely different animal than anywhere else. It's an unbelievable place. But I focus mostly on just trying to express to our team and our administration what things are most important to me, what things I think can help us win the most, and just try to put those into place. And, really, whoever I came in behind wasn't going to matter that much. I'm lucky to have come in to a situation that's on solid footing after an individual like Bill Nelson, who did a very good job. Most people don't get a job that isn't in a rebuild mode. And I'm very fortunate for that. I thank Bill for doing such a great job here, because it's made things easier for me.
You kind of hit on what my next question was going to be. The program 10 years ago wasn't as great as it had been. Still competitive in the conference, but kind of middle of the conference, and not many people talked about the Blue Jays. But Bill made some changes, and all of a sudden the team kind of came back into the forefront. And they had the tremendous run a few years ago in the NCAA tournament. To a lot of degree, he really did kind of resurrect the program right before he left, and gave you kind of a really good firm ground and left you a really good solid unit to take over from.
Yeah, I mean, Bill, throughout his entire career, he came in and he recruited guys like Andy Enfield and that crew, and made a run. And then institutions change all the time, and you have to adjust to what the institution requires as you are progressing in your career. And I think he did that. And later in his career, he brought in guys who were just as good. He brought in the Narakis and the Matt Griffins. He brought in Joel Wertman, and he had different eras with different stars. And I think, when we look back at it, we're gonna realize how good a coach Bill was, and he definitely has made my life easier, because he has recruited really good people.
Yeah.
It's nice to work at a school like Johns Hopkins where you get to coach kids who you enjoy being around all the time, and our kids are that to the highest level.
I'm going to look off camera a bit. Jim Valvano, correct name? Yes. You have some expectations, sir, because you now are only the second coach in Hopkins history. Yeah. Jim Valvano being the other to start 3-0. So no pressure this season.
Yeah, thanks.
No pressure in your career here at all.
No, none. I think
pretty good start, though.
I appreciate that. I think my wife would tell you that I am no Jim Valvano. And I think most of America would agree. And then I think that she would also say, I put enough pressure on myself. I don't have to worry.
Sure.
I don't have to worry about any other outside factors, you know.
But it is a team that you've gotten out to a 3-0 start. We're not talking specifics, because this is airing before, after you've had even more under your belt. But the team did start well. You have a pretty good unit, and the conference feels ripe for the taking, for lack of a better. Yeah, Swarthmore's good. F&M's supposed to be in the conversation. Ursinus is coming back into the fray. We don't know what to make of some of the other squads out there. But so it feels like it's ripe for the taking. Is this a team that maybe can make some waves this year, or do you still going to maybe need some time to really get this program under yourself before you guys can take off?
I hope we can. I really like our team. I think every team has flaws, you know, and the coach of a team is always going to know those better than anyone, hopefully.
Yeah.
Maybe not me, but most good coaches. But I do like our team, and I think that we have some talented players. I think we have some great kids who have really tried to do everything we've said. I don't know at this point, or really with my background, what the league truly is going to be this year.
Sure.
I don't know what we're truly going to be this year. You know, we're only a couple of weeks in, really.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a lot of room for growth. The thing that we focus on the most is, what are we doing today to advance our program, and how are we growing daily? Are we getting better or not?
Mm-hmm.
So I think if we take care of that, we've got a great chance. I don't really know how we'll fit into the conference picture. I'm just trying to have a good day today and win the next game, and really try to advance the program every day. And I think our guys have done a great job of that.
To some degree, you got to figure out the conference.
Yeah, I don't pretend to know as much as the other coaches in the league who have been here longer than I have. Hopefully I can fake it till I make it, you know. And
now, at least with your Williams experience, you're used to the Dave Hicksons of the world. There is the Dave Hickson and Centennial Conference in Glenn Robinson.
Yes, yeah.
So you can maybe pick his ear a little bit, but certainly a lot of interesting pieces in the conference to figure out.
It's a great league. I mean, I think the Centennial is one of the better basketball leagues in terms of the attention the schools pay to basketball, the environments in the gym, and just the tradition across the board. I mean, the programs at Centennial have had long and storied traditions,
absolutely.
A to Z, and I think that's fun. You get to play in games that matter, in places that matter throughout your year.
Where they're rabid about it as well.
Yes, that's exactly right. You know, you get great fan support, or heckled very badly, and either way, it's pretty fun.
You're going to see some strange outfits here at Hopkins.
Yes.
You're going to have some very dedicated fans at F&M.
Yes.
It's a fascinating mixture of schools and fan bases, as you put it, and teams. What's it like? We haven't gotten to this. What's it like now to be back in Division III after being in D1 for a little while? Granted, on the academic side of maybe the D3 side of D1, but what's it like to be back in D3?
It's not that different.
Yeah.
I mean, basketball, I think, is basketball. And there are rules specific to Division III that, you know, in a lot of ways sometimes promote a little more balance and a little more of a healthy lifestyle, you know. I think maybe my guys get sick of me a little later in the year, since I didn't scream at them all fall and summer like we would have in Division I.
Fair.
Maybe I'm a little, you know, fresher now because we didn't have workouts in the off season officially. You know, the guys do that on their own, and I think the other thing that I've really enjoyed about being back at Division III, and this is a really interesting observation to me this year, is, you know, because the coaches are able to step back and the kids are not coached every day of the year or every week of the year, I think you do have the opportunity, and I think we're seeing this here, to have a lot of ownership of the team by your student athletes. And it's been fun for me to watch some of our older guys and some of our leaders really have a huge role in developing what our standards are and what our culture is and will be. I think that's really unique.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk about the team, especially as the season's underway, especially here at your home gymnasium. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who are tuning in?
Come out to Goldfarb. It's an unbelievable environment. As you said, the Goldfarb gang, best costumes in Division III.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think we're going to play a fun brand of basketball this year. Would love to see you at some games this year. I know you have allegiances to other universities.
Yeah, it's okay.
But we won't hold that against you. And if you can come by, please do so. It's a wonderful atmosphere here for a home game with the Blue Jays.
I usually try to get a 1 or 2 if I can. I got a son now.
Do 4 this year.
I got a son now who's rampant. Don't be surprised if I'm dragging him out to a lot of games.
I'll let him sit on the bench. I'll let him coach the team.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Watch out. He's actually kind of getting smart at this stuff. You never know.
I need all the help I can get, Dave.
Well, don't we all?
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. Thanks, and good luck the rest of the season.
Thanks so much.
Absolutely. When we come back on Hoopsville, Catherine Bixby will sit in that seat, talk about the women's program here at Hopkins. It's all about Hopkins right now. We'll talk to her coming up. You're watching Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. Back with more after this.
Cheer for the stumbles. The he should have had that. And the tears that linger. For in those moments, greatness lies. There, you will find the provoked, the determined, the unified. It's in those moments that champions are born.
Great moments are born from great opportunity. That's what you have here tonight. That's what you've earned here tonight. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
My name is Marcus Walker. I was All-State, won a state championship, a high school All-American, and played college and pro ball. I played because I love the game. I grind to be the best. I sweat because I put in work. I'm strong because I believe. When I want to bring it before game time, I come to the house that college basketball built, the CBE. No matter your skill, take it to another level. Elevate your game right here at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center.
Something I discovered in myself is that if I have a goal, I can accomplish it.
It's a well-rounded experience.
At a Division III school, you primarily a student athlete, so the school is really shaped around you developing yourself as a complete individual.
It helps a lot that you have a family with your team that can guide you.
Cheer for the stumbles. The he should have had that. And the tears that linger. For in those moments, greatness lies. There, you will find the provoked, the determined, the unified. It's in those moments that champions are born.
Head coach Catherine Bixby. And coach, welcome to Johns Hopkins.
Thank you.
Welcome to Baltimore, we should appropriately say. Of course, you know this gymnasium after coaching a few years at Dickinson. We'll get to that in a minute, but first and foremost, have you settled in yet?
I have. I live 2 blocks just away from Hopkins, so I'm still walking to work, which I really enjoy. And I've gotten to know the immediate area pretty well just through walking.
Sure.
Yeah. I know everybody's dogs. That's a good step. You know everybody's dogs at this point.
Considering the news of Baltimore, which we won't dive into, I wonder how long you'll keep walking. Plus, it's getting to be winter time.
Yeah.
It's going to get cold. But hats off on finding a nice, close place. You take over a job that, same with Josh, and this has been an institution. 31 years, both coaches. Everyone's kind of used to, oh yeah, it's Nancy and Bill and blah, blah. How do you transition a program into something so new when it's been in such a particular way for so long?
Yeah, how incredible to take over for Coach Funk after 31 years. I was going through some of that history the other day, and they're also the winningest women's program at Hopkins. And honestly, that's what drew me to this job. Tradition of excellence and high expectations, and quite frankly, it's easy to take over for a program like that because they have such high expectations of themselves. And not only do they work really hard in the classroom, but they expect that on the basketball court,
You were coach at Dickinson, as we previously mentioned, for a couple of years, helped turn that program around.
Yeah.
Really successful there. So what drew you to this job, especially cross conferences? Some coaches, that's intriguing. Some coaches don't want to have anything to do with another team on the other side of the conference. What drew you to this job in the first place?
Yeah, you know, Dickinson was a phenomenal place to be in. I learned a ton from my staff there, from the players there, from the professors there. It truly was a wonderful first head coaching position, and I owe them a lot. You know, they really helped me learn how to be a coach. What drew me here is the city. I really do enjoy a mini Philadelphia, as I would say here.
Yeah, sure.
And also the tradition of excellence. The athletic department as a whole is a perennial power, and I feel really fortunate to be able to be a part of that. It's really a family of excellence, which can be inspiring and can make it really fun to coach these student athletes.
You got to experience the tradition in the fall already with all the success the fall sports have.
Yeah.
We haven't even gotten to the spring when things really ramp up to another level. But you guys are the interim now, and we're into the basketball season. Of course, team practicing and getting ready for an upcoming game behind us. When you look at what you have in front of you in terms of the team that was left behind, for lack of a better description, by Nancy Funkett, and what you have with what you have moving forward, what do you expect this year in the general sense? What do you expect in the near term?
Well, I feel fortunate to have some experience in the Centennial Conference because you know it's a grind.
Oh, yeah.
You know that at the beginning of the conference schedule, it's nowhere near what it's like at the end of the conference schedule. All these teams are really competitive, and you have to be on your best, I don't want to say behavior, but you have to be playing at your best every night. And if you're not, it can really come back to haunt you. So right now we're figuring out what type of team we want to be. We're small, we've got 12 players, so we're trying to balance, you know, how to deal with that. And we're still focusing just on the things we can control, which is defense. We really need to focus on our player-to-player defense, and then offense will come. Luckily, I've been left with some really talented guards. You know, Lillian, Scott, the leading scorer on this team, returned, and then Lexi Schultz, the point guard, who is really strong and competitive, and then Rory at the post. You know, so a lot of the pieces returned from last year, which has been good to work around, and now it's about getting the team to trust each other and to work together.
And when it comes to recruiting, you kind of have some familiarities. Again, with Dickinson, being in the same conference, everybody has some similar levels, as it were, of student athletes and such. But Hopkins is a pretty challenging place. And I know you're early into this, but have you figured out what's going to maybe work to get the players in? Or Bill made an interesting comment to me last year. Sometimes the players come to you. Are you sensing that already?
Yeah, you know, and that's that unique blend that Hopkins has that really brought me here, was that academic expectation with athletic excellence. I'll let you know after a year if we figured it out. It's inspiring. You know, we're really using it as a recruiting tool that whoever gets into Hopkins has earned it. And it's a privilege to be a part of the student body here. And we have used that as kind of a motivational tool with some of our recruits, that you've earned your spot here and you're smart enough to be here. And then now we're going to have a team of
really
student
smart
athletes,
players.
smart players, but student athletes that should take some pride in being at Hopkins, because it is truly a unique, special place.
You mentioned the Centennial being a grind. This year feels like it's going to be a bigger grind than it has. Maybe so many years ago, we had 4 teams in the NCAA tournament, including Hopkins. It was a real tough top of the conference. Feels like that's kind of returning this year. Haverford should be good. Muhlenberg's good.
Correct.
There's other squads in there that are going to be in the mix. This isn't going to be a shy away conference.
Nope.
How do you get, as a new coach, essentially, this team ready for that competition when either A, they've been listening to Nancy and how she preps them, and B, they don't know your point of view on it at all?
Yeah, again, I think it goes back to what you can control. So defense, you know, you have to be competitive and have a little bit of a fire in you every time, with every game on the defensive end. You're getting rebounds, you're boxing out, you're playing one-on-one defense with your player in a really competitive manner. Offensively, we're taking it slow. You know, like you said, Haverford returned their whole team.
Pretty much, yeah.
Muhlenberg returned the majority of their team. Gettysburg returned their whole team.
Yeah, it's a theme.
Yeah, Dickinson will be strong again too, and it's going to be a grind. So it's really about maintaining expectations and not getting too high and not getting too low, but staying in the middle and knowing what you can control.
Your history in working your way up, of course, a D3 student athlete yourself.
Yep.
Is there an ultimate goal in mind for you? Some coaches want to say, yeah, we're going to go for conference championships and national championships. But as a D3 student athlete, you kind of have a different point of view on it. Is the goal different? Is it always about the trophy case?
Yeah.
Or is it about something else?
I think here at Johns Hopkins, you're always expecting a national championship. Other teams do it here. You can see it happen. Our soccer program, women's soccer program is just an Elite 8 game. Men's soccer, Sweet 16. So national championship is in the conversation at Johns Hopkins. Are we there this year? Probably not.
Sure.
So again, we're maintaining what we can control, which is building defense, building team camaraderie, and starting to build what Johns Hopkins women's basketball looks like.
Have you been able to touch into the past? Has Nancy talked with you at all, or has that been able to give you your own opportunity to just kind of move forward?
Yeah, during the transition, Coach Funk and I met a couple times in the office, which was really excellent, and I got to hear a lot about her history here, got to hear which alums she really connects with, which alums are still really strong in connection with our program. And again, that history, you read her bio and it's inspiring to be a female coach for 31 years in basketball with 536 wins.
Yeah, pretty high.
Yeah, it's really inspiring. And we had some alums here the other day, and her spirit is definitely here. She's not here physically.
Hard to miss.
Yeah, but she'll be here for a couple games.
Curious, since you know the gymnasium, did you go to the wrong bench on your first home game?
It was, it did feel a little weird the first game, so that was strange. But it worked out well. We won that one.
Well, I appreciate you taking time to talk about the team, talk about the program, and the transition. We look forward to seeing where the Blue Jays go from here and taking your time. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuning in?
I always thank you. I think you're incredible. I think you ask great questions and you give a platform to Division III basketball, which I really appreciate and we need more of.
Well, thank you.
But you're good at it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's just a hobby.
Yeah.
It's just a hobby.
It's a good one.
Thanks. Catherine Bixby, head coach at Johns Hopkins women's basketball. I want to thank both the Hopkins staffs, coaching staffs, and the behind-the-scenes staffs for helping us out. When we come back, plenty more Hoopsville on this Sunday night. Welcome back to Gold.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III.
I did receive academic scholarships. Just being involved on campus, being a leader, all those things combined kind of get me recognized. It's a great experience for me.
My name is Marcus Walker. I was All-State, won a state championship, a high school All-American, and played college and pro ball. I played because I love the game. I grind to be the best. I sweat because I put in work. I'm strong because I believe. When I want to bring it before game time, I come to the house that college basketball built, the CBE. No matter your skill, take it to another level. Elevate your game right here at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
In any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all.
It's on us. It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us, all of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at d3hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
And welcome back to the WBCA NABC studios. I am your host, Dave McHugh. We're back live here on the show. I want to thank our Hopkins friends for that opportunity with Josh Loeffler and Catherine Bixby. Also, they jumped through some hoops behind the scenes earlier today when I didn't know if those interviews were going to get pulled off. We had some challenges with them, to say the least. But technology, even 15th season on Hoopsville, we're constantly being challenged by technology, aren't we all? So if we have any questions, this is your last chance, the last about 15 minutes or so of the show, to get us questions. We'll be happy to take them. Drop us a line, as it were, and we'll do our best to answer those questions. If you have anything else you want to ask us, fire it our way. We'll do our best to answer it. I had one email we will get to in a moment about coaching trees, which I thought was interesting. I don't have a great answer for it right now, but it certainly got me talking or thinking about it. Also some other stuff, so we'll get to that in a minute. But you can tweet us at D3Hoops or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. Join us on Facebook at Facebook.com/Hoopsville as well. I know we're simulcasting there. I'm trying to keep track of any comments that might be coming in. Listening from Maine, want to thank our friends who are doing so. And whatnot. So thanks for coming on the show and tuning in. Of course, our live stream is going through YouTube primarily. It's Thanksgiving weekend. It's not like we're expecting hundreds of you, but we know that more and more of you watch the show. So if you are a fan of the show, please tell your friends about the show and tune in. We are on pretty much every Thursday and Sunday night, 7 o'clock Eastern time. We do have some scheduling challenges coming up, as we mentioned in pregame or in pre-show. Whenever that part of the show was that we went on the air at the beginning, that's what I'm referring to. This week, I am traveling to soccer championships, play-by-play for both men's and women's soccer championships. I will be traveling on Thursday. Either we're going to be crazy and do a show that evening from my hotel room, which I highly doubt, or we'll put a show together and have it launched that evening, which we've done many a time. Then on Sunday, we should be back in time. I thought I could get some of the trip done on Saturday night. I'm not going to be able to. So we're going to have to travel back on Sunday. Hopefully we'll be back in time to put a show on Sunday night. Then we should be good the next week. Then we're in Salem for for football, which means that Thursday show in Salem. We've debated every once in a while, said, no, maybe we can put a show on while we're here. And then I think wiser of it. I think I'll think wiser of it. We won't have a show, but then we'll be back in town to get the show following that. And then we'll do the Thursday before Christmas, unless we look at the schedule and just don't see enough games going on. But I suspect we'll have enough to talk about at that point in time. So that's kind of our schedule. Then June 4th hits, and we are nonstop. Every Sunday, every Thursday, 7 o'clock Eastern time, the rest of the way. And the two exceptions being Super Bowl Sunday, we do an earlier show so we don't interfere with the game, and Marathon, which looks like it's going to be Thursday, February 1st this year. We go on at 10 a.m. until 10 p.m. So a little different on that show. Crazy week, as we said, in Division III basketball. I was just looking at scores today. Augustana got past McMurray, no surprise. I was watching the Williams-Yeshiva game because in the first half, Yeshiva was kind of with Williams for a long time. Now, Williams went on a bit of a run late in the half that kind of extended it, but Williams only won that game by 13. Yeshiva's been kind of coming along a little bit the last couple of years, so certainly kind of a hat off to them. But I don't know if Williams wasn't ready for the game or what. But I expected Yeshiva to lose. Nothing against Yeshiva. Williams is number 3 in the country. Yeshiva's not on anybody's voting ballot. I didn't expect it to be a 13-point game. By the way, if you're watching the video wondering why it keeps blocking out, I've got a bit of a cold going on. My daughter's had a cold for a month, and I've had to wipe my eyes a little bit and such. Babson lost to Bowdoin. We mentioned that earlier. At least it was a 9-point game. Looks like Commondale's struggling a little bit at the start of the season with his new role. I think the team's still coming together. I think Babson's still going to be dangerous, but I'll be moving him down my top 25. I know some voters will move him out. I'm not sure where I'll move him to specifically. Heck, I actually do have my preseason top 25 ballot in front of me. And remember, I do blog that out every week, though this week's going to be tough. I will do my best to get it out. I had Babson 6. We'll see. That's a little low. They're not going to stay there. Middlebury got a win over Endicott. I like how Middlebury started this season. They're certainly playing well. Again, that crazy loss from Wash U to Mount St. Joseph today by 22. Mount St. Joseph put 96 on Wash U today. Just odd. Marietta continues to play well. Christopher Newport lost to Dickinson. We forgot to mention that earlier tonight. Christopher Newport is struggling. Their backcourt is certainly struggling. They're 3-1, but they barely got past Randolph-Macon. They barely got past Catholic. They were losing at halftime at that game. They then beat Wilmington. This is their first loss of the season. They've got Salisbury and Frostbury ahead in conference play. Then St. Mary's and Wesley. They got 4 CAC games coming up here in the next couple of weeks, and then Virginia Wesleyan. I'm not sure what to think of Christopher Newport right now. Very perplexing. Rochester barely got past Stockton. We mentioned that. Emory put 102 up on Maryville. That certainly caught my attention today. Lycoming got past Penn College. No surprise there. We mentioned the Scranton loss earlier, and Swarthmore got past Misericordia rather easily. By the way, there's a game going on right now. St. Joseph's of Maine is hosting Southern Maine. It's not really that close, but it is going on right now. So I'm curious what's going to go in the top 25. I had Whitman number 1. I have Augustana number 2. That's not going to change. Williams is number 3. That's not going to change. Ramapo is 4. Not sure what to do with the Roadrunners after they got smoked by Randolph-Macon in a very well-played game by the Yellow Jackets. I'll probably move them down a little bit because they can't afford those kinds of games. North Central looks good. Augustana's going to stay 2 despite losing Warford. They lost Warford last year and played well. Babson's going to move down. I have Middlebury sitting 7. Hanover sitting 8. They lost to Worcester today, or this weekend, I should say. And River Falls, WashU, St. John's, Whitewater, Tufts. You know, it's going to be tough. Guilford's 2-2. I had him 17. CMS, I had 19. They're off to an 0-4 start. It's a fascinating situation in this top 25, and we'll see what we make of it. Again, email us Hoopsville at d3hoops.com in the next 10 minutes or so for any last-minute questions. I'll be fascinated to see how the other voters think this top 25 through, because I think it's going to be crazy. I got a question from the side. If you're going to move Ramapo down, who's moving up? There's nobody. Well, that's the thing is, how far do I move Ramapo down? Listen, right now, I'd move Ramapo down and swap them at least with North Central. North Central will move into my 4 slot most likely. Ramapo at least moves to 5. I might move Middlebury above Ramapo, so that puts Middlebury 5, and that now moves Ramapo to 6. But then the question becomes, I can't move them behind Babson. Maybe Hanover, but Hanover, they both have bad losses, so in that theory, I keep Ramapo ahead of them. So Ramapo at least is probably going to stay 6 at this point. I don't see anybody deep in my poll moving up. WashU certainly not going to move up. I don't think River Falls is going to move up. So, yeah, Ramapo will move down, but maybe at worst to 6. And they can't go any further. That's an absolute truth there from one of my colleagues. How far can I really move Ramapo? And it's not that I don't think Ramapo's good. I do think Ramapo's good. They just have these moments where I'm perplexed. And I look at them going, guys. Now, they ran into a Randolph-Macon team that maybe was on a buzzsaw that night. I got told the Yellow Jackets put on a clinic. They shot the ball well. We knew that. Maybe I don't hang that on Ramapo that much. That said, it's those kinds of games that happen to them in the NCAA tournament all the time. And it makes it hard to vote for them as a result of that. Or have confidence in them. Not vote for them, but have confidence in them. I like what they have. They had a tremendous season last year. If anybody remembers, coming out of the D3Hoops.com Classic, I was high on Ramapo. It was one of the first times I left Vegas going, McBreen's got a team here. And I felt good about them. They didn't make many changes at midseason, which they were known to do. And I rode them hard. And then they flamed out in the second round. And it's just, it's frustrating because you know how good this team could be. And they just seem to have these games, ill times. So the Randolph-Macon game it brings up these, oh, here we go again moments that you hope they're getting past. Maybe they are. Maybe everybody, as I said earlier on, with everybody testing each other and playing tougher and tougher opponents, maybe you just got to get used to some of these losses, to be blunt. And with parity, we got to get used to these losses. It's not like Randolph-Macon's a bad team. Randolph-Macon's a good team. They did very well last year. I was told by those close to the program that they're probably a year ahead of themselves. So I expect good things from the Yellow Jackets this year. But if Ramapo is my number 4 team in the country and Randolph-Macon's not on my top 25, that game shouldn't be a blowout. Maybe I'm getting a little too in detail on it. Maybe I'm getting a little too microscopic, as it were. That's what I'll do when I look over everything. But, yeah, Ramapo's not going to fall very far because there isn't many people to put them behind him. Oh, North Central lost twice. Thank you. Ryan Scott's listening to the show, and thank you, Ryan. My cold is affecting me. I forgot that North Central had lost twice. I had mentioned that earlier, didn't I? Yeah, I can't move behind North Central, can I? Oh, the tryptophan, I think, still kind of got me a little slow here. So, yeah, worst case, Ramapo is still in my top 5. And, again, I still think they're a good team. It's just these losses frustrate me. They confuse me. I can't wait to see them in Vegas yet again. They'll play Stevens Point, and I believe, off the top of my head, they might be playing Whitman. I don't remember if they are playing Whitman. We'll look them up here as we speak. So I look forward to seeing how they match up. I don't know how that Stevens Point game is going to match up. I'm curious what Stevens Point's going to look like by that point. They'll take on Central. And you know what? I'm sorry. I've got them confused with Whitman. They're taking on Ohio Wesleyan and Central. I'm looking forward to the Ohio Wesleyan game. The Central game could be interesting for Ramapo. I wanted to see Ramapo take on Whitman. We're not getting that. Stevens Point is playing Whitman, and that's the game I had a little confused there. But again, we'll see the Roadrunners in Vegas. Look forward to seeing them. Coming up, they got Medgar Evers and Montclair State, Stockton, then Rutgers, Newark, Kane, Farmingdale State, Yeshiva. So they don't have a lot of games ahead, except for some in conference that are going to give us any kind of barometer as to where they are. I think the Stockton game is worth keeping an eye on. Maybe the Montclair State game. Rutgers, Newark is certainly going to be an interesting one. They don't play TCNJ until January 6th. So we don't see that one, and you don't see New Jersey City until the 13th of January. So Ramapo's still got a lot of their tests kind of ahead of them before we really dive into this one. Too full bore, as it were. Quickly checking to see if we have any other emails before I dive into the one email I did get. Also checking to see if anybody's made any comments on our Facebook simulcast or on our YouTube stream before we dive into this. Again, that's how you can interact with us, though it's hard. We do our best to keep up with everybody who may be tuning in. So the email I got, let's see, here it is. It says, Davidson College Basketball Hoops Pipeline. Congratulations on 20 years of D3 Hoops coverage. Thank you. We'd love to pick your brain. This is to Pat as well, and I'll send it to Pat's way. I don't know how much Pat would have an opinion. I'll send it to all my guys, but to be honest with you here, Peyton sent it from us. I'll send it on to all of our guys and see what they would say on this. He says, I'd love to pick your brain on coaching pipelines in D3. I'm sure there may be someone that I'm unaware of for sure. But is there someone that comes to mind that matches or beats Bob McClillop? Sorry for my cold is affecting me there. From Davidson. Jason, from that, he says, Jason Zimmerman at Emory, Landry Kozmowski at Swarthmore, Tim Sweeney at Hobart, and Chris Murphy at Union. Yes, I think we have a couple of coaching trees in Division III that are definitely worth watching. I know you have Tim Sweeney in there from Hobart. I might argue that Tim Sweeney really comes from the Mike Neer tree. He played under Mike Neer, and then he coached under Mike Neer before being under McKillop. So I would argue, I don't know, is Sweeney really a Bob or a Mike category there? But Mike Neer's coaching tree is pretty good. We talked to Tom Palumbo on the last Hoopsville from Guilford. If you look at his coaching tree, it's not too bad either. A lot of his players have become very successful coaches. So that's certainly one to keep an eye on. Dave Hickson's coaching tree, folks. Take a look at that one. If you really want to go in deep, there are a lot of coaches that have had some kind of interaction with Dave Hickson as well, including the assistant coach he has now that used to be the head coach at W&L. You now have a head coach at Muhlenberg that is a Hickson. You have a couple other in the Northeast that are Hickson related. So there are a couple Division III coaching pipelines, and I'm not even hitting the lot. There's a couple more. Believe it or not, the fun one that I like is the Pat Cunningham one. Mike McGrath at Chicago was an assistant under Pat Cunningham. Pat Cunningham has had other coaches. Unfortunately, one that's out of the coaching right now, or at least not in the college coaching. there's others out there who have some pretty fun trees that are worth keeping an eye on for sure. Nothing against Bob at Davidson, Zimmerman and Kozmowski and Murphy certainly good. I caution about Sweeney. I almost want to know. I think that's a Mike Neer tree, to be honest with you. He says maybe missing someone after living in Atlanta for almost 10 years, become a big D3 Hoops fan for sure. I appreciate the email. I will forward it on to the rest of the guys to see what they think. There are some great coaching trees in Division III. And Dave Hickson is one that comes to mind. Like I said, Mike Neer comes to mind, and others that I've mentioned. I don't know. Something tells me I don't know if we keep Sweeney in that tree or we put him in Mike Neer's tree, but it's a good question, and I've thought about that of late. There's even trees of the schools. Look at Hopkins. Jim Valvano coached at Hopkins. Bill Nelson coached at Hopkins. Look who Bill Nelson has coached. There are some fascinating trees and interwovens. And, of course, we always talk about the guys who've gone up to now the NBA. It's hard to miss the impact that they have had by being D3 student athletes or coaches themselves. Even GMs now, or at least in the front office with a D3 background. And that's what makes D3 so great. It's that these guys have something about the game and something about who they are that is different than D1. You don't see GMs who are D1 players all that often. You don't see coaches who are D1 players all that often. It happens. Of course it happens. The head of USC is a D3 coach. So, that's why covering Division III is so much fun. We have a passion for it, and this is why, because we see so many great student athletes who come out of these, come out of the mix, as it were, in Division III. Quickly checking to see any questions here. Lots and lots of movement on my D3 Hoops ballot this week. Voter I see, and he's on the women's side. He doesn't even know what a lot of movement is. I don't know if Connor is listening, but Connor, you got it easy, to be blunt. You got it easy on the women's side. And then that's the thing is there's even parity on the women's side. At least I don't vote in both polls. I would love to someday maybe vote in both polls because I find the process very enlightening for me to keep track of what's going on in Division III. But that said, I'm glad I don't vote on the women's poll because I do enough work on the men's. And this year, the women's poll could be full of parity this year. So we'll see what happens with a poll tomorrow. Again, comes out usually late afternoon, early evening, depending on when our voters remember to come off their Thanksgiving break and get back into the voting. And we'll see what they have to say on that vote on both the men's and women's polls. Tufts women look good. I don't think the top's the tough part on the women's side. It's the middle and bottom. And you could argue that the middle and bottom is what's going to be hard in the men's side tomorrow as well. That's going to wrap it up. Again, we will do our best to do a show on Thursday in some capacity, whether it's a podcast version like our preseason where we just make it easy and throw an audio show together for you, or maybe a video combined, try and edit some stuff together if we can. Worst case scenario, try and do a show from our hotel room in Greensboro, North Carolina, but I'm not holding my breath. I'm trying not to bring as much gear as I can. In the meantime, we'll be back on the air for Sunday for sure. So Thursday there will be a show. We'll just figure out how to put it together. This week, look for the first top 25 votes or ballots or polls or whatever you want to call them coming out on Monday for the first one in season. And don't forget, we pretty much go all but about 2 weeks in Christmas is about the only time we don't vote. It is the 20th birthday, as it were, for D3Hoops.com. So happy birthday once again to Pat Coleman. Gordon Mann and the like. Gordon has been involved, I think, a little longer than I have technically. I think I technically came on board 2000 or 2001, and Gordon was on board in about 2000 or 1999, as Pat puts it. So hats off to Gordon for sure for his yeomanship, and Pat's right. Gordon did a lot of heavy lifting that people don't realize. It's now more on his shoulders officially than it used to be, and I certainly try and help him. Ryan Scott certainly tries to help him. I'll freely admit I didn't feel like I helped much in the last couple of days. I tried to spend some time with the family, but I know that I'm transitioning into less time with the family now, and Gordon and the like, and same with Ryan. But in the meantime, if it's not for Pat Coleman starting that website, I would argue you don't have Hoopsville, plain and simple. I don't know if there's an easier way to say that, because I wouldn't have seen D3Hoops.com as a fan of my alma mater who's doing well in the NCAA tournament. I don't see them get hosed, for lack of a better description, by the NCAA committee. So I don't post on the boards. I certainly don't go after Catholic because of Pat and so on and so forth. So, and then I don't sit there at an online radio station, which was well ahead of the curve before the tech bubble, and say, hey, let me put a show together. And so then I don't have this show that I end up bringing back to my alma mater for a few years and then coming to these studios. It just doesn't. I don't see how it evolutionarily happens if I don't get involved in at least looking at D3Hoops.com. And I think Gordon would tell you the story that he doesn't get involved with D3Hoops.com if Pat doesn't make a phone call asking him for a score of a game that Gordon thought was ridiculous. Why would anybody call him? And Ryan would probably tell you he's not involved if it's not for a website. So if it all boils back to Steve Ulrich having a website that he's apparently not maintaining, I don't know, Steve, we haven't heard your side of the story, and then Pat taking over. And again, this show is here because of that. And as a result, it's presented by D3Hoops.com as well. And, of course, we have wonderful partners, WBCA and the NABC now, because of that. And we love our partnerships with them. We look forward to more partnerships in the near future, including this season. So while we are celebrating our 15th season on air on Hoopsville, Pat is celebrating the 20th year and 21st season of D3Hoops.com. And I can't imagine, I just can't imagine Division III. We know other sports that don't get this coverage. Football gets it. Basketball gets it. Ice hockey gets it to some degree. Baseball gets it. There's a little bit for soccer. There's a little bit for lacrosse, but nothing dedicated for Division III in lacrosse. There's really not much in volleyball. There's really not much in field, if anything, in field hockey. Softball doesn't really have much that I'm aware of. Swimming doesn't. They may have something. Wrestling. You start figuring this out, and you realize this is a good thing. This helps promote what we love about student athletes in Division III. And it's all because a website wasn't updated, and Pat decided to dive in. The best part of that story is Pat thought it was only going to be a couple hours a week doing this. It's not even a couple hours a night anymore. But thanks to Pat, and thanks to D3Hoops.com. And thanks to you, the fans, for tuning in, because you fans are the reason we keep doing this show. If there was absolutely no interest in doing this show, we wouldn't do it if we didn't have people tuning in, asking us questions, etc. And we certainly wouldn't do it if we didn't have help from the sports information directors out there, and we didn't have help from coaches who are willing to come on, and in the future student athletes who are willing to come on. That has helped us do this show. And look, you see the set behind us, folks. We don't have these jerseys. We don't have books. We don't have memorabilia if it wasn't for you. And so thank you, because if you weren't there, this effort wouldn't be worth it. So thank you very much. That's going to do it for us. Going to sign off. Thanks to Pat Coleman for tuning in and joining us talking about the 20th birthday of D3Hoops.com. Thanks to Tim Sweeney at Hobart for talking about his statesman and then having an internal battle between whether he wants him to hold on to the ball or not. Also, thanks to Josh Loeffler and Leffler. Josh Leffler. By the way, I misspoke about that earlier. It's Leffler. I said that on the show earlier. I apologize, Josh. Found out after the fact I had completely botched it. And I just botched it again, trying to remember how to say it right. It's Leffler. Imagine the O's not there. Thank you to Josh Leffler and Catherine Bixby from Hopkins. I keep wanting to say Dickinson. I'm so used to talking to Catherine Bixby at Dixon. She's at Hopkins. And I want to thank the Hopkins sports information staff. Ernie and Jill are great, and they're wonderful every time we come down there, and they were wonderful yet again this time, and I want to thank them for taking the time. We'll be back on the air in some capacity next Thursday at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for your support. Thanks to D3Hoops.com for being the presenting sponsor, and, of course, to WBCA and NABC for helping us with our studio. You've been listening to Hoopsville. Once again, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and NABC studios. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll be back on Thursday. Good night.